Welcome back, Archer athletes. Today's training theme is going to be improved shot execution. We are going to be working towards the training standards and targets of successfully using the prescribed breathing pattern that I call 2 mountains and 1 plateau. That's the pattern of breathing that I want you to use today during 90% of the shots, okay? Second target and standard, I want you to be able to describe by the end of class how this particular breath pattern, the 2 mountains, 1 plateau that we're calling it, how that breath pattern impacts your shot cycle. Does it impact the rhythm? How does it impact the timing or the power? And be able to articulate that by the end of class. The flow of this training session will progress from 4 particular warm-ups that are going to focus on 1, freeing the shoulders, 2, getting really good scapular depressions towards the spine, and 3, breathing. After warm-ups, we move on to a 3-part progression. The first part will focus on stretch band work. The second part will work on applying this breathing cycle of 2 mountains, 1 plateau to the training bow, blank bail. And then we'll move to your competition bow or a higher weight bow at varied distances, 9, 13, and 18 meters, asking you to apply the same breathing pattern that we're working on, okay? Now, today requires attention and focus. Remember, I've said before that attention is the currency of learning, and I want you to take a deep dive into this breathing pattern today, especially if you're new to this breathing pattern. All right? So some of this training might look ugly, and we need to train ugly in order to compete or perform cleanly, in order to do performance well. All right? So I want everyone to commit to being focused and attentive to the breathing cycle today, and specifically choreographing that breathing cycle of 2 mountains, 1 plateau with the movements of the shot cycle. Before we get started, let's make sure we're all on the same page with the breathing cycle we should be using and why breathing is important. So number 1, the breathing that I want everyone to be doing is going to be coming from the diaphragm. It's diaphragmatic breathing. Number 2, the breathing pattern that's prescribed here, the 2 mountains, 1 plateau pattern, wants to be choreographed with the movements of the shot cycle. The inhales and the exhales are strategically placed. The inhales are needed to oxygenate the blood. Oxygenated blood will rejuvenate your muscles, prepare them for the work that you're going to be performing to the bow, and oxygenated blood is also going to your brain, and that's going to help your brain stay alert and focused through the shot process. When we hold our breath for an optimal amount of time, our blood pressure actually goes up, which will help us through expansion, and our heart rate goes down. This is ideal. This is what we want happening. Breathe with our diaphragm, choreograph the movements and the breath together, and remember that we have strategically placed the inhales and exhales and holding to optimize our performance. Let's take a look at the diagram behind me. This diagram shows the 2 mountains, 1 plateau cycle or breathing pattern that I've been referring to. Here we have 1 mountain, here we have a second mountain that's a little higher, and here we have the plateau. The percentages represent total lung capacity. So just to give you a sense, when we are having a conversation normally, our lungs will fluctuate between about 40% capacity and 60% capacity. So we want to be starting as we come out of set position. We want to be being aware of our breath cycle. And when we're about 40%, we want to inhale as we raise the bow up to about 65%. That's the elevation, if you'll think of it that way, of the first mountain. Then we want to coil down as we come down the first mountain. So we're going to be exhaling as we coil down. That coiling down is going to help us settle our shoulders down and sink into our back a little farther, okay? So if we take a look here, I'm in set position, and as I inhale, exhale. And that exhale is allowing me to let my shoulders sink down, and I can find my lower trapezius a little easier. Inhale, exhale. Exhale to about 55%. Then we want to inhale again. This time we're going to inhale a little bit more. We're going to inhale up to 70% zone. So we're going to inhale as we draw, load, and anchor, and begin exhaling around the time where you're transferring. And then we'll be holding our breath, a round hold, and you'll continue to hold that breath through finding holding mentally and physically, expansion, and then also follow through. So this is the first mountain, second mountain, and here's the plateau. First, move your feet about shoulder width apart and tuck your hips under to engage your glutes. Engage your abs and maintain a neutral spine. Keep your chin tucked and elbows locked for all of these progressions. Rather than slide your scapula directly towards your spine, try moving it down and towards the spine during the retraction. This is also called a depression. For the protraction, feel the shoulder blade move away as far from your spine as possible. Go slowly, a little bit more slowly than you see here, and do 12 reps of each step in the progression, or stop at whatever step is your maximum ability. The first progression we'll go through is this standing progression of protraction and retraction. The second step will be getting onto our hands and knees and then doing the protraction and retraction. Finally, a push-up position or a plank position, and tuck your hips under to engage your glutes. Engage your abs and maintain a neutral spine. Keep your chin tucked and elbows locked for all of these progressions. And then one arm protractions and retractions, if you can. Warm-up number 2 is a shoulder mobility warm-up using a bar. Hold the bar in front of you, pulling out on the bar like you're trying to extend it. Keep soft knees, tuck your hips under, and keep a flat back, no hollow back. Engage your core. Raise the bar up, pulling it out, and then bring one bicep to one ear and your other bicep to the other. Continue to pull the bar apart and raise it above your head before bringing your elbows straight down to the ground. Make sure not to flare them out. Keep pulling the bar out and pull the bar down as well, like you're trying to bend it. Hold that scapular depression, feel the stretch. Raise the bar up and then twist, like you're coiling in archery. Twist one way, then twist the other. Keeping the glutes and quads engaged, keeping the core engaged. When you lower the bar like this, push the bar together instead of pulling it apart. Then repeat that cycle. Begin pulling the bar apart, raise it, bicep to ear, bicep to ear. Continue pulling the bar apart, keep the hips tucked and the core engaged. Now, drop the elbows down towards the ground without flaring them out behind you. Hold the scapular depression, raise it back up, still pulling the bar apart, and do your twists. Keep those hips steady. That side was a little bit better on me. For the final warm-up, you'll need to lie in the prone position on a bench. Face your palms towards your feet, thumbs will face down. Bring your arms, one arm to about 120 to 145 degree angle, so maybe your elbow is about level with your ear. So your arms won't be 90 degrees to your body. As you raise one arm, synchronize rotating your spine to follow the raising arm. Hips will remain as flat as possible against the bench, and your other shoulder will remain against the bench. If needed, grab the leg of the bench to help stabilize yourself like this. Do both sides, 12 repetitions on each side. This is the breathing warm-up. Lie on the ground with your soles of your feet on the ground, knees in the air. Go ahead and relax. Close your eyes if you want to. And I want you to focus on breathing with your diaphragm. Place your hands on your tummy and feel your diaphragm, your tummy, push your hands up towards the ceiling. Your chest and ribs should stay relatively still. While you're on the ground, go ahead and try 10 breaths using
the 2 mountains and 1 plateau breathing pattern.
Part 1 of the 3-part progression I mentioned earlier involves using a stretch band to do 20 shot cycles while looking at the 2 mountains, 1 plateau diagram. Only clean reps count. So if you do 2 reps back to back where you kind of mess up the breathing choreography with the movements a little bit, don't count them. 20 clean reps. Inhale as you raise the bow up to 65%, and exhale as you coil down. Nice coil. Inhale as you draw, load, and anchor. Exhale as you transfer, and then hold your breath. Hold while you find holding, expansion, and continue to hold all the way to the end of follow through. And do that 20 times. Remember, I want you to choreograph the shot cycle with the breathing pattern. After you successfully go through 20 cycles with the stretch band using the 2 mountains, 1 plateau breathing pattern, I want you to ask yourself the following question to reflect on. What do you need to focus on in order to make sure you are choreographing the movement patterns and your breathing cycle together properly? Part 2 of the 3-part progression involves you shooting 4 ends of 6 arrows at less than 9 meters blank bail. Your standard is to successfully choreograph the breathing pattern and the movements of the shot cycle in 21 out of the 24 arrows that you shoot. We have inhale up the first mountain, exhale down into the first valley, inhale up to the top of the second mountain, which is a little taller than the first, inhale up to draw an anchor, exhale for transfer, inhale to the top of setup, exhale as you settle down and coil down, inhale, draw, load, anchor, exhale, transfer, hold, and continue holding all the way through the end of follow through. The final part of this 3-part progression for breathing involves shooting 2 arrows each at 3 different target distances. You'll have a target at 9 meters, 13 meters, and 18 meters. You choose your target face size at each of those distances. So Atreyu is going to start with 2 meters at this first distance. It doesn't matter what distance you begin with. And he's going to be focused on the same target or goal that we have for the entire day, which is successfully choreographing the movement patterns of the shot cycle with the prescribed breathing pattern, the 2 mountains, 1 plateau. So here he's going to go ahead and do 2 arrows, and then he'll move over and shoot 2 more arrows at a different target. You can go ahead. Final reflection question includes, how did focusing on the breath pattern and choreographing the movements of the shot cycle with the breathing pattern impact your experience of the shot cycle? Did it impact your rhythm? Did it impact the power or the efficiency of your shot? Did it feel like you were having to put out more or less effort? Consider these questions. I suggest you write down the answers and journal a little bit to make sure that you really think deeply about this. And also write down the key pieces of what you identified you needed in order to stay attentive and focused during the shot cycle to the breathing pattern.